Good morning, happy Friday, and happy Halloween. We are here, me and Trent, Joey Gunnar and Trent Finnegan. Of course, it's Halloween, so I had to pull out the Spider-Man mask, but I feel like it might be an issue if I keep it on all day. So we'll leave that for later tonight. But we've got a lot to talk about today because the Broncos are playing a huge game against the Houston Texans this weekend, and it should be a really fun game to watch because the Broncos have all this momentum now after beating another team in Texas, the Dallas Cowboys. They should be able to beat a solid defense and a underperforming offense in the Houston Texans by a pretty good amount. This is going to be a fun game to watch, Trent. What are we looking at here? Is it going to be a defensive battle, or is this going to be one where the offense just completely takes over and makes the Houston Texans lose all credibility as one of the best defenses in the league?
This is going to be a classic defense wins championships ball game. Come on.
I love it.
I mean, we know Nico Harrison and the Dallas Mavericks, that's their way of winning, and I don't know how that's working for them. That's the motto, but back to football, Texans number 1 in total defense, Broncos are number 5.
Yeah.
And you got a quarterback in CJ Stroud who's regressing a little bit, and you got a quarterback in Bo Nix who's finding his stride somewhat, but he's finding his stride against the bottom of the barrel in terms of NFL defenses.
Yeah.
So I do think that this is going to be a defensive showdown. The Texans got Will Anderson coming off the edge. We know the Broncos got Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper coming off the edge. Broncos without Pat Surtain, that could change stuff. Texans got Derek Stingley. So I see a lot of parallels in the personnel on these defenses. Obviously, the scheme is different. Texans run a bit of a 4-3. Different from the Broncos, and Sean Payton talked all about that on Wednesday. But I do think that this is going to be a low-scoring, muddy game, going to have to run the football, and going to have to probably win with a decent amount of field goals.
Yeah, no, I agree. But one thing you'll have to watch is, this is going to be one of those games where we see if that inconsistency, and I feel like I've said that word so many times this season, if that inconsistency is gone. You're coming off a big win against the Cowboys. Now you're going out against the Texans, who are 3-4. They are not a good team in the record books. Sure, their defense is putting up some great numbers, but the Broncos defense, I would say, is more consistent and can actually sustain the level that they're playing at throughout the entirety of the year. While the Texans, I don't know if they're going to be performing the same way come December. Come 2 months, what's the Texans defense going to look like? It's going to be one of those games where the Broncos have this opportunity to put a stamp on a game and say, you know what? We just beat the Cowboys. Now we're dominating a team that's 3-4 that we came into the game as underdogs against, because the Broncos are underdogs in this game. This should be a big blowout game for the Broncos, but they'll have to, make the most of their opportunities when their offense is on the field, because obviously we know this Broncos defense is going to be able to tear down CJ Stroud. It's going to be dominant for the Broncos defense. Can the offense perform at the same level that we saw them perform at against the Cowboys?
Yeah, and I really think you only need 21 points to win this football game.
Oh, yeah.
Realistically, I mean, I think it's going to end up being like a 16-13 type deal, 17-14. But one thing that sticks out to me is you look at the Texans and their 3-4 record. They've lost to the Rams, who are a good team, the Buccaneers, who are a good team, the Jaguars, who are a good team, and the Seahawks, who are a good team. Their wins are 26-0 over the Titans. We know who the Titans are.
Mm-hmm.
And 44-10 over the Ravens, who are playing like college players on defense. They're playing a bunch of UDFAs who nobody's seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And they
that was
didn't
without
have
Lamar Jackson, yeah.
And they didn't have Lamar in that game. And then they beat San Francisco last week. San Francisco was their best win of the season. It was their first win over, I would say, a quality opponent. And I know Baltimore looked good last night, but last night's Baltimore team was way different than Baltimore a month ago.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that they really haven't seen or they haven't won a big test yet. Like the Niners are decent. I think that the Broncos are a better football team than the Niners. Mm-hmm. I do think that the road aspect of this game will be interesting. We know how dominant the Broncos are at home. 9-game win streak, longest in the NFL. But playing on the road is always a different animal in the NFL. And you're going down to Houston. You're playing this loud dome in NRG Stadium. And it's interesting. The Broncos, like you mentioned, they're underdogs. And, the home team usually gets 3 points added from Vegas. Houston is a 1.5-point favorite. So by that logic, it would mean that, we think the Broncos should win this game, but since Houston's at home, line flips to Houston. So I do think that will play more of a factor into this game than people think it would, especially with how good these defenses are and how much of an offensive struggle I think it's going to be. And also the books have the total at 40.5. So they have the score being like 21-19-ish, which we saw was the score in the third quarter of that Giants game. So, or the fourth quarter of that Giants game. So yeah, it's going to be a mucky one.
Yeah. There's a lot to look at with the books there, but I don't know if Houston really has a home field advantage. Like, honestly, like they play at NRG Stadium. It's loud. It'll get loud. The fans are all right, but this should, I don't know if the home field advantage plays that much. And there are certain stadiums where, the home field advantage is evident. Arrowhead, Lambeau, US Bank in Minnesota, Gillette. Here. This here has a good home field advantage. Buffalo, those are teams with good home field advantages. But then you talk about, like, I put the Houston Texans in the same kind of, like, I don't know, can I put Hard Rock in that kind of same category where it's like, do they really have a home fild advance? Not
they also
really.
Don't have a football team, so
yeah, like they don't really do anything. Like, they don't have a home field advantage. No, I was gonna say the Caesars Superdome, but that one's that they've got a home field advantage there. Those New Orleans fans are wild. So that's one thing to look at, but I feel like really this message that's being given is that these two teams are even in a lot of ways, and I think that it's going to show on Sunday that that's not the case at all. These are not even teams. The Broncos have struggled to win games by more than one score. They're winning these one-score games, and that's good. That's what you need to do. One-score games are important to win, and the only two games that they've lost this season were by one score. We're by one field goal at that. So we've seen that the Broncos are able to succeed under pressure in these situations where they're able to pull out wins by only one touchdown or one field goal in certain cases. This should be one of those games where they're able to win by one touchdown or one field goal, because it might honestly come down to the last possession if the Broncos don't play their best style of football. Like, if the Broncos play the football that we were used to for the first 4 or 5 weeks of this season, they'll still have an opportunity to win it on the final drive, just because of how well their defense is playing and how I trust the defense to be able to hold Houston to 14 points in the fourth quarter. That's just where I see this game heading. And it's going to come down to offense, really. Like, we know that both of these defenses are going to play well. So both of these offenses are starting at ground zero. They're starting at the bottom level. Which offense is going to be able to succeed more against two premier stacked defenses? I think it's the Broncos, just because of what they've shown in the last week against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I like that point. And I think another aspect of this game is Houston has a really good running back in Woody Marks, and they have a really good tight end in Dalton Schultz. And Broncos, Dre Greenlaw's looking good this week. Maybe we'll finally get to see like a real dose of Dre Greenlaw 8 years after Broncos signed him.
Yeah, jeez.
But that's gonna be an interesting one. And they still have Nick Chubb, who's clearly lost his juice from all the catastrophic injuries.
Yeah.
But Woody Marks is really good. Chubb can still do some damage in the red zone. And then obviously Riley Moss versus Nico Collins. That's a big one. That's a big one.
Nico's great. Yeah.
Is Riley Moss going to be able to keep his hands to himself, or is he going to get put in timeout by D'Amico Ryans, by CJ Stroud, by Nico Collins? So we'll see. And then Dalton Schultz at the tight end. He's always open on 3rd and 5. He's always open in the red zone. He's a very good tight end. So, but past that, they're playing, like, you look at their skill players, they're playing a bunch of young guys. Like they got Higgins from Iowa State has been really good. Jaden Higgins, but still, that's a rookie. You got Xavier Hutchinson. Like, you got these young guys, and the Broncos, I think they just have the better players on that side of the ball. I say Broncos defense going up against Texans offense. The Broncos have the better players even without Surtain. It's just sticking to the scheme, not allowing a big chunk play, and hoping that Nico Collins doesn't go for 180 on you.
Yeah, I mean, that's it right there. And it's going to come down to Riley Moss. It's going to come down to Chris Abrams-Drain and Jahdae Barron, those guys in the secondary. It's going to be a secondary game because of, that one player, Nico Collins. And then CJ Stroud. Is this going to be his game where he finally looks like his rookie self? because he looked great his rookie season, but ever since then, he's been nowhere to be found. Do not let this be the game where he comes back to life on, post-Halloween, 2 days after Halloween, the man comes rising from the grave. I would hate to see that. That's my biggest nightmare right there. But overall, yeah, I just to give my prediction for the game, I'm thinking it's a low-scoring game. I'm thinking probably around 24-17. Broncos win by a touchdown. That's just what I'm hoping for. I could see it. But again, the Broncos are underdogs, so anything could happen. What's your prediction for the game, Trent?
I got 17-13,
Yeah.
Just gonna be ugly.
Yeah.
Gonna be real football. Gonna be a lot of 3 and outs. Gonna be a lot of running the football. All we need is for somehow the roof opens and it starts dumping rain. That's all this game needs. Just to be ugly, defensive battle mucky. But 17-13 Broncos. I think that, like I said, they got the momentum from this win streak. They're playing really well right now. The offense, I do think, is going to come back down to earth. Everybody gets a little boost after playing the Cowboys. We saw what Russell Wilson did to the Cowboys in week 2. But I still think that this defense is too good, and the offense will be able to do enough to get them over the hump. So, 17-13 Denver.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right, moving on. Let's talk about something that happened yesterday. I can't say it was shocking because I was hoping for it to get done sooner rather than later, but the Avalanche extended Martin Necas for 8 years at $11.5 million a year. This was by far the biggest news to come out of yesterday. Insane. Overall, just to give my one word before we talk about it, awesome. 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 That's where I stand on this. Great decision by the Avs to extend one of their biggest playmakers. Trent, this is great news. Great news.
Yes, they needed to do this 100%. And obviously it gets compared to the Mikko trade. He's now making $500,000 less annually than Rantanen. He's 3 years younger than Rantanen. And we've been watching the games. This man is on a tear this season. This man is just stepping in. He's just stepping into his prime. So they needed to get this done. It was a little worrisome when they didn't get it done at the start of the season. You see some guys getting some high numbers. Like I know Jack Eichel got 13.5 for Vegas, and he's a center, and he's maybe a little more important to that team than Necas is to Colorado, which says how important Eichel is.
Yeah, I believe Eichel's leading the league in points.
Exactly. He's really good, but like he got 13.5, and I was like, ooh, I really hope that Necas doesn't want to use that as leverage and slide in 11.5. So looking at next year's cap sheet, Marty Necas is tied for 11th in the NHL and money being made next year.
It's a lot.
Nathan MacKinnon is at $12.6 million. He's 5th. Cale Makar is down at 43 with $9 million.
And that's going to change this offseason because come July, he's due for another contract.
And that one is going to be a lot.
That's going to be a blank check handed to a top 3 player in the NHL saying, hey, you tell us how much you want. So that's where that's at. But right now, you've got somebody who's playing at a point per game level secured on this team for the next 8 years. Now, overall, I think it's great. However, there is something in that contract, a no movement clause for the next 7 years. That makes me nervous. That makes me nervous because God forbid, he plays this season. It's a great year. Next year, nothing, absolutely nothing, completely falls off of a cliff. Year after that, even worse. Year after year after year, just no improvement, nothing for him. You have got yourself in a real sticky scenario, a sticky position. It could go very poorly. And that's just one side of the spectrum. Worst case scenario, he's on the team for the next 7 years until I'm 30 years old and he has done nothing for the Avs. Best case scenario, you've secured a player who's playing at a point per game level right now that, this is going to sound crazy, but he's 26 years old, playing like a young Nathan MacKinnon right now. Best case scenario, he continues to improve. And for the next 8 years, you've got 2 Nathan MacKinnons on your team. Now that's best case scenario. Obviously, neither of those are really going to be likely. So middle case scenario, right in the middle, you found a secure player that can lead your team on any given night in total points to something like the Stanley Cup for the next 8 years. You've opened up your window and secured it from closing for up to the next 8 years. So this is a great signing, but that 7-year no movement clause kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah, and I get that. And, you look at the playoffs last year, and he had 1 goal in 7 games against Dallas. And everyone was like, ooh, we traded Mikko for this guy. Meanwhile, we all know what Mikko was doing on the other side. So you would like to see a better playoff run from him in 2026. But like you said, I don't think it's going to be to a point where you're like, whoa, like we have to stick with this guy for however many 5 more years or whatever, but if he drops down. He's got the Nathan Mackinnon tax, which means it's the same thing as the Jokic tax. Everybody looks better playing alongside Nathan Mackinnon. So, and I get that McKinnon's a little old, or is older than Netjes, obviously, but he's still playing at an elite level. So I think as long as McKinnon is playing like himself, it's going to make life a whole lot easier for Netjes to stay as around a point per game. And that's why I think that this is a good deal for the Avalanche. They just, whether it was Rantanen, whether it was Netjes, whether it was someone else, they just needed to find a winger that they could put alongside McKinnon to make that first line absolutely lethal. And they did that. And they saved a bit of cash. And I mean, it's not a whole lot. It's only $500,000 a year. But it's enough to maybe be a little more flexible with the roster than they would have been with Mikko. Remember, Mikko really wanted upwards of like $14 million with Colorado. Yeah. I know he only ended up with 12, but I think the talks have been that he wanted 14 from Colorado and Carolina, and they told him to go kick rocks. And so that's why he's down. He's making around the same as Netjes is. So $14 million would have made him the second highest paid player in the league next season.
Yeah. It was a lot of money, and they were right to move off of him. However, they could have maybe waited closer to the trade deadline to see if they could have gotten him down.
Yes.
Because, negotiating 3 to 4 weeks out from the trade deadline, the numbers are going to look a lot different than, hey, the deadline's tomorrow. You want to be here or not? Like that's as simple as that. But getting somebody like Netjes for $500K less, $4 million less in the long run, it's not just player for player. It's the things that come out of moving off of Mikko. You got Brock Nelson. You got Jack Drury. Of course, they had those earlier acquisitions of the 2 goalies that we know, Blackwood and Wedgwood. And part of that, that money there plays into that. So they got a lot more than it seems from moving off of Mikko than just Marty Netjes.
I agree with you. So, and it's the same thing. The MPJ for Cam Johnson trade. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, Cam Johnson, maybe he's not shooting the 3-ball like Porter was. Maybe he's not doing this, but he allows for other things to happen on the roster. And I know that that's a lot bigger difference. That's $21 million. But if you can get a guy who can fill that role enough so then you could go play around with the rest of the roster and help out your star players, I would do that 100 times out of 100.
Yeah, no, Marty Netjes is Cam Johnson. That's just that's the only way to look at it. Mikko Rantanen is Michael Porter Jr., and both of them are in a different place now. And I don't know very many people in Denver that really love both of those players much anymore. But overall, great news. Getting that done is a huge deal. Of course, a lot of money. I want to see how it plays out. I don't think that it's going to be a failure. Obviously, I said awesome as my one word, but again, that 7-year no movement clause does freak me out no matter what. If there's anybody, who gets that, I get a little bit timid. But time to move on to my favorite section of the week where we react to the polls that we put up every Monday. This is a question that we put up on Monday. We actually did a show about on Wednesday. We were talking about right here. Is this the year that the Nuggets and Avalanche both win a championship? Clearly, most people believe yes, as 62% of you said that this would be the year that they both win the championship, and only 38% said no. Trent, would you have voted on this poll?
I would have voted yes, and I was talking about like, hey, it's a little it's going to be tough for both of them, but these are 2 of the best additions of these teams that we've seen this decade. So if there's any year to do it, it's going to be this year, and I do think that they can get it done.
Yeah, and clearly a lot of people in the comments think that, but let's just read some of those comments on this. It would be great if that was the case, but highly unlikely unless both teams improve during the trade deadlines. That was from @Damian Coughlin. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that there's really any moves that need to be made for each of these teams at the trade deadline. I mean, I could see where maybe some players would come to mind, but I don't think that there's anything that the Nuggets and Avalanche need to do. I think that these are the teams that they can ride out until the finals.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what they can do at the trade deadline. They spent all offseason building up as close as they can. And
Mhm.
maybe if some one for one swap comes along, but I don't know exactly how much wiggle room they have until next offseason.
And who would you want to swap for either of these teams? I can't say that there's anybody that comes to mind where I'm like, yeah, I want to get him off the team. There's
Not in
nobody.
my eyes.
Yeah, there's nobody. Not for the Nuggets nor the Avalanche. I don't want to see any of this team get broken up. I think that they're both crafted pretty well. This offseason has been great to both teams. Next comment from Dennis Murtha. All three, Nugs, Avs, and the Broncos. Let's go. I love that.
Broncos.
I love that. I mean, obviously the Broncos I didn't put into this poll because they're still a young team. This is the second year of the Bo Nix. It could happen. They're 6-2 right now, looking to get the top of the AFC West as long as the Indianapolis Colts start, crapping the bed. But that could happen. I mean, it could really happen. The Broncos could. Is it likely? Not as likely as the Nuggets and Avalanche, but I could definitely see it. Next comment from Kirk Davis, 1966. It's going to be another Irish spring. Go Celtics. This guy's wearing a Broncos hat in his picture. And he just said, "Go Celtics."
Yeah,
What do we think?
the Celtics haven't exactly been great. They're 2-3 right now. No Tatum.
Yeah,
I just
Kirk, I
don't
love
think
the
that
enthusiasm, but
when Tatum's healthy, yeah, but I just don't. I think without Tatum, I don't think that they can beat some of these Western Conference teams.
I don't think they can beat some of the Eastern Conference teams.
Yeah, the
Like,
Cavs are going to be tough.
I don't see them beating the Cavs. I don't see them beating the Knicks. I don't see them beating the Pistons. Like, they're having a hard season. So, Kirk, I respect that you're a Celtics fan and you're open about it, but I would just kind of keep that one to yourself right now. But I love the enthusiasm, Kirk. It just makes me a little bit upset that you had to come and say it on this show. But that's going to do it for today's episode. Make sure to watch this Broncos game. We'd love to hear some of you guys come into the show on Monday and bring your opinions. I'd love to see what all of you guys said. Hit us up on Twitter at any time. We love seeing your comments too. Roy, always good to see you in the comments. A lot of the people who are always commenting, great to see you guys. But until Monday, we will see you guys all then. Have a great weekend and a great and happy Halloween. Thank you guys. See y'all later. Bye.